There is a massive silent revolution happening right now across India, and it is being led by young women. If you look around, from college campuses to corporate boardrooms, from local cafes to international Zoom calls, Indian girls are fundamentally changing the way they communicate. For a very long time, English was considered a barrier, a privilege of the elite, or a subject you had to pass in school but never really speak. Today, that narrative has completely shattered. Indian girls are not just learning English, they are mastering it, and they are doing it with incredible speed. This is not happening by magic, nor is it happening because they are spending hours memorizing thick grammar books. It is happening because of a shift in mindset, the smart use of technology, and a deep understanding that English is not a measure of intelligence, but merely a tool for expression. To understand how this rapid improvement is happening, we first have to look at the traditional hurdles that held previous generations back. The biggest trap Indian students fall into is the translation trap. Because our mother tongues are so rich and structurally different from English, the natural instinct is to think in Hindi, Tamil, Telugu, Bengali, or Marathi, and then translate that thought into English before speaking. This process takes precious seconds. By the time your brain finishes translating, the conversation has already moved on, leaving you feeling awkward and silent. The girls who are improving quickly have realized that to speak fast, you have to think fast. And to think fast, you have to stop translating. They are actively training their brains to form thoughts directly in English. It feels unnatural at first, like trying to write with your left hand if you are right-handed. But with consistent daily effort, the brain builds new neural pathways. Suddenly, words like nevertheless or consequently pop into the mind without a Hindi equivalent acting as a middleman. Another major shift is how they are consuming content. The traditional advice was to read English newspapers like The Hindu or The Times of India. While reading is undoubtedly beneficial, it teaches you formal, written English, which is entirely different from spoken, conversational English. The girls accelerating their learning today are turning to digital content. They are aggressively curating their social media feeds. If your Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts are filled with comedy sketches, fashion tips, and gossip in your regional language, your brain is constantly processing that language. The quick learners are replacing that content with English creators. They are watching interviews of Bollywood actors, listening to international podcasts, and watching vlogs. The key here is passive immersion. When you hear a language spoken naturally, with its slangs, its pauses, and its rhythm, your subconscious mind starts absorbing it. You start understanding the melody of the language. You learn how native speakers connect words together, how they drop certain sounds, and how they use intonation to convey emotion. This passive listening creates a massive database in the mind. So when it is time to speak, the phrases come out sounding natural rather than robotic. Then there is the powerful technique of shadowing, which has become a secret weapon for many. Shadowing is essentially acting like a parrot. You put on a video of someone whose voice and accent you like, maybe a confident news anchor, a TEDx speaker, or a popular YouTuber. You listen to a sentence, pause the video, and repeat it exactly the way they said it. You do not just repeat the words, you copy the tone, the stress on certain syllables, the rise and fall of the pitch, and even the breathing patterns. Why is this so effective? Because speaking a new language is a physical exercise. Your tongue, your lips, and your jaw muscles have been trained your entire life to move in a specific way to produce the sounds of your mother tongue. English requires different facial muscle movements. Shadowing trains these muscles. Indian girls are doing this in the privacy of their rooms, maybe while getting ready in the morning or commuting on a bus with earphones in. Over a few weeks, their mouth muscles adapt. their accent neutralizes, and their fluency increases dramatically because they're no longer tripping over their own tongue. We also have to address the psychological aspect, which is arguably the most important factor. In Indian society, there is a bizarre double standard when it comes to speaking English. If a boy speaks fluent English, he is labeled smart and corporate. If a girl speaks fluent English, she is often labeled arrogant, show off, or trying to act Western. This societal judgment creates a massive mental block. The fear of being judged by relatives, by peers, or even by strangers stops countless girls from opening their mouths. The ones who are improving quickly have made a conscious decision to completely detach their self-worth from other people's opinions. They have adopted a so what attitude. So what if I mispronounced a word? So what if my grammar was wrong? At least I tried. They understand that perfection is the enemy of progress. If you wait until you are completely error-free before you start speaking, you will never speak. They embrace their mistakes. Every time they use the wrong tense or fumble a sentence, they treat it as data, not as a failure. They correct themselves and move on. This removal of the fear of judgment accelerates their learning tenfold because they are actually getting practice time in the real world rather than just practicing in their heads. Furthermore, the approach to grammar has completely evolved. Schools in India have historically treated English grammar like mathematics, with rigid formulas, complex rules, and endless parsing. While knowing the rules is helpful, it is terrible for real-time conversation. You cannot calculate the past perfect continuous tense in your head while trying to have an emotional conversation. The girls who speak fluently today have stopped studying grammar rules and started studying patterns. They learn phrases as whole chunks rather than single words. Instead of learning the word decision and then learning how to use make with it, they learn the chunk make a decision. Instead of learning the rule of prepositions, they memorize phrases like interested in, good at, or depend on. When you speak in chunks, your brain processes information much faster. It is the difference between building a house brick by brick every time you want to speak versus having prefabricated walls that you just lift and put into place. This chunking method makes them sound incredibly fluent and natural. The role of technology cannot be overstated. Smartphones, which are often criticized as a distraction, have become the ultimate language labs. These girls are using AI tools, language exchange apps, and voice-to-text features to their advantage. A brilliant hack that many are using is the voice typing feature on their phones. Instead of typing out a message to a friend or a colleague, they use the microphone icon and speak it out. They force themselves to dictate emails, notes, or even personal diary entries. The phone types out what they say. If the phone misunderstands a word, it is immediate feedback that their pronunciation needs work. They look at the text, see the error, and try speaking the sentence again until the phone gets it right. It is like having a free, available 24/7 tutor. Additionally, talking to AI chatbots out loud helps them practice conversational English without the anxiety of talking to a human being. They can ask the AI to correct their grammar or suggest better vocabulary for a specific situation. Reading habits have also shifted from academic to functional. Instead of reading classic literature, which uses archaic vocabulary that no one uses in daily life, they are reading contemporary fiction, self-help books, online articles, and Reddit threads. Reading modern text shows them how English is actually written and spoken today. It introduces them to modern slang, idioms, and conversational phrasing. They keep a small notebook or a notes app where they jot down interesting phrases they come across. If they read a line like, "I was on the fence about it," they do not just skip it. They look it up, understand the context, and make a deliberate effort to use it in their own conversation that same day. The rule of learning a new word is that if you do not use it 3 times within 24 hours, your brain will discard it. These girls are actively hunting for new words and forcing them into their daily vocabulary. Let us talk about the environment. You cannot learn to swim on dry land, and you cannot learn to speak English by sitting in silence. The fastest improvers are actively manufacturing an English-speaking environment for themselves. They form small groups with like-minded friends where the rule is simple. For 30 minutes, we only speak in English. It does not matter how many mistakes are made. Switching to the mother tongue is not allowed. They find language exchange partners online where they teach someone Hindi and in return, that person helps them practice English. They attend local public speaking clubs or online webinars just to get a chance to speak. They understand that immersion is the fastest route to fluency. If you are surrounded by people who speak your regional language 24 hours a day, your brain has no incentive to learn English. You have to artificially create that need. Another fascinating trend is the focus on accent neutrality rather than trying to fake a Western accent. In the past, there was a misconception that speaking good English meant putting on a fake American or British accent. It usually sounded artificial and drew more negative attention. Today, Indian girls are aiming for a clear, neutral Indian accent. They are focusing on vowel sounds, diction, and clearing the heaviness that regional languages sometimes put on English words. They are practicing tongue twisters to improve clarity. They are recording themselves reading a paragraph aloud, listening back to it, and identifying which words sound mumbled. This self-awareness is crucial. You cannot fix what you cannot hear. By focusing on being understood, rather than sounding like a foreigner, they project immense confidence and authenticity. Consistency is the underlying engine of this entire process. The difference between a girl who struggles and a girl who speaks fluently is not talent. It is consistency. The fast learners do not study English for 5 hours on a Sunday and then do nothing for the rest of the week. They do 20 minutes every single day. They listen to a podcast while walking to college. They think in English while taking a shower. They read 5 pages of a book before sleeping. They shadow a video while drinking their morning tea. These micro habits stack up over time. Language learning is not a sprint. It is a snowball rolling down a hill. It starts small, but with daily, consistent effort, it gathers massive momentum. Within 3 to 6 months of daily micro habits, the transformation is unbelievable. It is also important to highlight the deep intrinsic motivation driving this change. Why are they working so hard at this? Because they have realized that English is a key that unlocks doors. It is the language of the internet, of higher education, of global corporate culture, and of opportunities. An Indian girl from a small town with a brilliant mind might be completely ignored in a job interview if she cannot articulate her thoughts in English, no matter how technically skilled she is. This is an unfair reality, but these girls are choosing to play the game to win rather than complaining about the rules. They want to travel, they want to study abroad, they want to represent their families and themselves on global platforms, and they refuse to let a language barrier stop them. This burning desire translates into intense discipline. They are no longer learning English just to pass an exam. They are learning it to change their lives. Finally, they are changing their internal dialogue. The biggest hurdle is often the voice inside the head that says, "I am not good at this," or "people will laugh at me." The girls who succeed replace this with a growth mindset. They start affirming to themselves, "I am learning and every day I am getting better." They celebrate small victories. They feel good when they successfully order a coffee in English without stuttering. They feel proud when they understand a Hollywood movie without subtitles. They acknowledge their progress, which keeps them motivated during the frustrating plateaus where it feels like they are not improving at all. In conclusion, the rapid improvement of Indian girls in English is the beautiful combination of unlearning bad habits, leveraging modern technology, and conquering internal fears. They are throwing away the grammar books, stopping the mental translation, and embracing mistakes. They are using their phones as teachers, shadowing native speakers, and immersing themselves in the language through content and conversation. They are breaking the stereotypes and societal judgments that once held women back, stepping into their power and claiming the space they deserve. English is just a language, a vehicle to carry ideas from one mind to another. And right now, Indian girls are building the fastest, most efficient vehicles imaginable. They are proving that with the right mindset and daily action, fluency is not a distant dream, but a very achievable nearby reality.